My name is Dahlia Whitmore. I'm 28 years old, and for most of my life, my family called me the mistake they had to tolerate. Not out loud, not directly, that would have been easier. They did it slowly, quietly, in ways no one else could prove, but I felt every single time. My older sister, Vivienne, was everything they were proud of. Top schools, perfect grades, perfect posture, perfect life. She didn't just succeed, she performed success. And my parents, they worshipped it, displayed it, invested in it like it was the only thing that mattered. Meanwhile, I was the comparison, the example, the quiet disappointment sitting at the same table. I had dyslexia, diagnosed when I was 7. Letters didn't stay still, words moved. Sentences broke apart before I could understand them. What took others minutes took me hours, but instead of helping me, they labeled me. She's just not academic. She tries, but she's different. That word followed me everywhere. Different, not special, not unique, just less, and the worst part, I believed them for years. Because when the people who raise you repeat something enough, it stops sounding like opinion. It starts sounding like truth. At 12, I asked for help, real help, not sympathy, not excuses. Support, my mother's side. Like I had asked for something unreasonable. "We've already spent so much on your sister's education," she said. "We can't do everything." That was the moment I stopped asking. Not because I didn't need help, but because I understood something. In this family, resources weren't shared, they were invested, and I wasn't considered a good investment, so I adapted. Alone, audiobooks became my escape. I stopped trying to read like everyone else. I started learning differently. Visual maps, connections, patterns. I couldn't process words the way they could, but I could see structures they missed. At the time, I didn't realize how valuable that was. Because no one told me except one person, my grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, the only person in that house who never looked at me like I was lacking something. Every Sunday, I would take the train to her apartment. Small, quiet, nothing like my parents' polished world, and that's where I learned more than I ever did in school. She didn't force me to read faster. She didn't correct me. She explained things differently, through stories, through systems, through meaning. "Dahlia," she told me once, her hand resting gently over mine, "you don't see less, you see differently." I didn't fully understand it back then, but I held on to it because it was the only version of me that didn't feel broken. Years passed. Nothing changed at home. If anything, it became clearer who mattered and who didn't. Family dinners were the worst, because that's where performance mattered most. My father would stand at the head of the table like he was presenting a company report, praising Vivienne, listing her achievements, every detail delivered like proof of success. And then, eventually, his attention would land on me, briefly, dismissively. "And Dahlia," he would say, pausing just long enough to make it uncomfortable. "Well, she's doing her thing." A few polite laughs, a few uncomfortable glances. And that was it. That was my place, not celebrated, not defended, just acknowledged. Like a side note no one cared to read. But one night, everything changed, not loudly, not dramatically, just one small moment. At that same table, in front of everyone, when I realized something I had never allowed myself to think before, I wasn't the problem. I had just been surrounded by people who needed me to be one. And that realization, that quiet shift, that was the beginning of everything. Once you start noticing it, you can't unsee it. That's the dangerous part about awareness. It doesn't arrive loudly. It settles in quietly, and then it rewrites everything you thought was normal. After that dinner, I started paying attention differently. Not emotionally, not defensively, objectively, like I was observing a system instead of living inside it. And what I saw wasn't random, it was structured. My sister wasn't just loved more, she was positioned, prepared, funded. Every opportunity she had was built. Carefully, intentionally, private tutors, elite programs, connections my parents never even mentioned to me. Meanwhile, I was given just enough to function, not enough to grow, not enough to compete, just enough to exist without asking questions. And for years, I didn't question it, because I didn't think I had the right to. That changed when I started working, not in some big role, not anything impressive. An administrative position, entry-level, low pay, minimal responsibility, exactly where they expected me to be. But what they didn't expect was that I would pay attention. Because when you're invisible, people don't filter themselves around you. They speak freely. They reveal things. They assume you don't understand. And that's where they made their biggest mistake. I didn't read fast, but I saw patterns quickly. Faster than anyone in that building, who spoke to who, which deals kept coming up, where money flowed, where decisions didn't match logic. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then repetition proved it wasn't, so I started mapping it. Quietly, in notebooks, diagrams, connections, because that's how my brain worked, not in lines, in structures, and the more I mapped, the clearer everything became. Including something else, something personal, something I hadn't expected. My father didn't build what he claimed to own, he inherited it from my grandmother, the same woman who taught me how to think. The same woman he barely mentioned unless it benefited him, and once I saw that, I couldn't stop seeing it. His confidence, his authority, his reputation, all built on something he didn't create. And suddenly, everything about the way he treated me made sense, because I reminded him of something he didn't want to face. That success without understanding is fragile, and people who know that try to control everything around them, especially the people who see through it. I didn't confront him, I didn't say anything, because this wasn't the kind of truth you argue about, it was the kind you wait with, the kind that reveals itself at the right time. And that time came sooner than I expected. It started with an email, simple, corporate, cold, subject line, position update. I read it once, then again, then a third time. Because even though the words were clear, my brain needed to confirm it. They were letting me go, officially, cleanly, without discussion, without warning, effective in 2 months. No meeting, no conversation, just a decision, already made. And as I sat there staring at that screen, something inside me didn't break, it shifted. Because for the first time, it wasn't doubt I felt, it was clarity. This wasn't about performance. This wasn't about capability. This was about removal. They didn't want me there, not because I couldn't contribute, but because I wasn't supposed to, because my presence didn't fit the version of the story they had built. And now they were correcting it, quietly, permanently. But what they didn't realize was that timing matters. Because the moment they decided to erase me was the exact moment something else was about to appear. Something they didn't expect, something they couldn't control. And something that would change everything they thought they knew about me. The email didn't make me panic. That's what surprised me. No shaking hands, no racing thoughts, just stillness. Like something inside me had already accepted it before I even read the words. I stayed late that evening, not because I needed to, because I wanted to see what happened when people thought I was already gone. The office was quieter, looser. Doors slightly open, voices less careful. That's when I heard them, my parents in his office. The door wasn't fully closed. It never is when people think they're safe. "We can't keep her here," my father said. His tone wasn't angry. It was practical, like he was discussing numbers. "It doesn't look right," he continued. "Vivienne stepping into leadership while her sister is doing admin work. People will start asking questions." A pause, then my mother, soft, measured. "We've done what we could for her." That sentence landed harder than anything else, because it wasn't cruel, it was dismissive, final, like a conclusion already accepted. "Some people just don't have it," she added quietly, and that was it. That was the moment everything became clear, not emotionally, structurally. I wasn't being removed because I failed. I was being removed because I didn't fit the image, because I didn't match the narrative they had invested in. And once you understand that, you stop trying to prove yourself, because it was never about proof. It was about control. I didn't walk in, I didn't confront them, I didn't even make a sound. I just stood there listening, understanding, letting it settle, because this wasn't a moment that needed reaction, it needed memory, and I remembered every word. The next day felt different, not outside. Everything looked the same desks, same conversations, same routine. But inside, something had shifted permanently. I wasn't trying anymore, not to impress, not to belong, not to be seen, because I finally understood something my grandmother had been trying to teach me for years. You don't earn value from people who have already decided you don't have it. You walk away from needing them to see it. That night, I went home earlier than usual, didn't open my laptop, didn't distract myself. I just sat there in silence, thinking, not about what I lost, but about what I had. Because for the first time, I asked myself that question honestly. What do I actually have? And the answer wasn't what they thought. It wasn't degrees. It wasn't titles. It wasn't approval. It was something else, something quieter. Something they never noticed, because they weren't looking for it. I saw patterns, I understood systems, I connected things others missed, and slowly I started realizing something that wasn't a weakness, it was an advantage. I just hadn't been in the right place to use it, and then I remembered the box. The one my grandmother had given me years ago, the one I had never opened, not because I forgot, because something about it felt intentional. Like it wasn't meant for a random moment, it was meant for the right one. And suddenly this felt like that moment, not dramatic, not obvious, but precise. I stood up, walked to my closet, moved aside old boxes, old clothes, things I hadn't touched in years, and there it was, small, wooden, unassuming, but heavier than it looked. I picked it up, sat back down, held it in my hands, and for a second I hesitated, because deep down I knew something. Whatever was inside that box wasn't just information, it was a decision, and once I opened it, there would be no going back to who I was before. So I took a breath, opened it, and everything changed. The lid opened slower than I expected. The hinges creaked slightly, like even the box knew this moment mattered. Inside, 3 things: a folded letter, an old document, and a small black USB drive. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. But the weight of it immediate. I reached for the letter first, because instinctively I knew that's where she would start. Her handwriting hadn't changed, still steady, still precise, still hers. My dearest Dahlia, if you're reading this, then the timing is right. And your father has finally shown you exactly who he is. I paused, because she was right, not partially, completely. I kept reading. I'm sorry I couldn't change how they treated you while I was here. I tried in ways you may not have seen, but I knew something they didn't. You were never the problem. My throat tightened, not from sadness, from recognition. She had seen it. All of it, long before I did. What you have isn't a limitation, it's a different way of understanding the world. And one day that difference will become your greatest advantage. That line stayed with me. Because for the first time, it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like truth. I unfolded the second page. There are things about this company your father never understood, and things he tried to change when he realized he couldn't control them. Now my focus sharpened, because this wasn't just personal, this was structural. Inside this box are documents he has never seen, the original foundation of everything he claims to own. I reached for the old document next. Carefully, the paper was aged, stamped, official, older than anything I had ever seen connected to the company. It wasn't just paperwork, it was origin, the original agreement, ownership structure, clauses, conditions. Everything that built the company from the ground up. And as I read slowly, carefully, something became very clear. What my father believed he controlled wasn't actually his to control, not completely, not the way he thought. There were protections, embedded, permanent, designed to prevent exactly the kind of behavior he had been showing for years, and he didn't even know they existed. I leaned back slightly, processing, because this wasn't small, this wasn't symbolic. This was power, real power. And then I picked up the USB, plugged it into my laptop. One file, time-stamped years ago, board meeting recording. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room, confident, controlled, familiar. She's too old to understand modern decisions, he said. We need to reduce her authority. I froze, because this wasn't interpretation, this wasn't assumption, this was evidence, clear, undeniable. He hadn't just inherited everything, he had tried to take more. From the one person who built it, from the one person who saw through him, and she knew, she had known all along. That's why she gave me this. Not for revenge, for protection. For balance, for truth. I looked back at the letter, the final lines. When the time comes, you will have a choice. You can stay silent and remain what they decided you are, or you can step forward and become what you've always been capable of being. My hands rested on the desk, still, grounded, because this wasn't overwhelming anymore. It was clear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting, I was deciding. And the moment I made that decision, everything stopped feeling uncertain. Because I finally understood something. They thought I was the weakest person in the room, but they had never seen me when I actually had something real to stand on. And now I did. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was anxious. Because my mind was finally clear. For years, everything felt blurred, like I was trying to move through something I didn't fully understand, but now every piece was in place. The way they treated me, the way they positioned my sister, the way my father controlled everything. It wasn't random, it was intentional, And now so was my next move. I didn't rush. That was the difference. This wasn't emotional, it was strategic. I read everything again, the documents, the clauses. The letter, every line mattered, every detail had purpose, because my grandmother didn't leave things incomplete. She built systems, and systems only work when you understand them fully. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Not confront them, not argue, not explain. That wouldn't change anything, because people like my father don't respond to emotion. They respond to authority, structure, control, so I chose the one place he respected, the boardroom. I made the call before I could second-guess it. The company's senior board coordinator answered, calm, professional. Good morning. My name is Dahlia Whitmore, I said. I need to request an emergency board meeting. There was a pause. Not confusion, recognition, because names like ours, they carry weight, even when people pretend they don't. I'll need authorization from at least 2 board members, she replied. I'll handle that, I said, and I meant it. The next call was harder, not technically, emotionally. Margaret Cole, one of the oldest board members, someone who had worked with my grandmother from the beginning. She answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. No surprise, no hesitation, just certainty. You knew, I asked. Your grandmother told me enough, she replied. She just didn't tell me when you'd be ready. That word again, ready. It felt different now, not like pressure. Like recognition. I want to call a board meeting, I said. You'll have my support, she answered immediately. No questions, no doubt, 2 more calls, 2 more approvals, and just like that, the meeting was set, 48 hours. That was all it took. When the confirmation email came through, I read it 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, because I wanted to feel it. This wasn't something being done to me, this was something I was initiating. For the first time, later that day, my sister called, her voice tight, controlled. What did you do? She asked. I didn't answer immediately because tone matters, silence matters, timing matters. Nothing unusual, I said calmly. I requested a meeting. A meeting, she repeated. Yes, with the board. The silence that followed different, sharp. You don't belong there, she said finally, not loud, not emotional, just certain. That same certainty I had heard my entire life. You'll embarrass yourself. I almost smiled, because for the first time that sentence didn't land, not even slightly. We'll see, I said, and ended the call. That night I prepared. Not emotionally, structurally, documents printed, evidence organized, statements simplified, because clarity isn't about saying more, it's about saying exactly what matters. The next morning, everything felt still. Like the world was waiting, not for something to happen, but for something to change. And as I stood in front of that building, looking up at the place I had spent years feeling invisible, I realized something. They thought I didn't belong inside. They thought I didn't understand how things worked. They thought I would stay in the background. Quiet, accepting, unseen. But what they didn't understand was that I had been watching this system for years, learning it, mapping it, understanding it in ways they never expected. And now I wasn't walking in as the overlooked daughter. I wasn't walking in as the quiet employee. I was walking in with something they couldn't ignore, something they couldn't dismiss, something they couldn't control. And in less than an hour, everything they believed about me was about to collapse. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. 40 floors, each second stretching just enough to remind me there was no turning back now. When the doors opened, the air felt different, colder, sharper. The kind of space designed to make people hesitate. I didn't. I stepped out, walked forward, didn't look around for reassurance. Because I wasn't there to belong, I was there to change something. The boardroom doors were already closed. A security guard stood outside. He looked at me, then at his list. You're not on the authorized attendees list, he said. Of course I wasn't. That would have been too easy. I have business with the board, I replied, neutral, calm, controlled. I can't let you in without clearance. Before I could respond, a voice came from behind me. She's with me. I turned. Margaret, standing there like she had always been part of this space because she had for decades. Authority doesn't announce itself, it just exists. She has the right to speak, Margaret added. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, 12 people, seated, waiting, my father at the head of the table, my sister beside him. Exactly where they believed they belonged. Their eyes landed on me, and for a brief moment I saw it, not anger, not even irritation, dismissal, the same expression I had seen my entire life, like I was about to prove them right. I took my seat, didn't rush, didn't fidget, didn't explain, because this wasn't about asking for permission. The chairman opened the meeting, formalities, procedure, then my name. Dahlia Whitmore has requested to present. A pause. All eyes on me, I stood, my hands steady, not because I wasn't nervous, because I was certain. There's a document you haven't seen, I said, no build-up, no emotion, just fact. Before I could continue, my father stood up. I think we should clarify something first, he said, his voice calm, polished, controlled. She's not qualified to address this board. There it was. The same line, different room, same intention. She works in an administrative role, he continued. She has no legal training, no executive experience, and she struggles with reading, my sister added smoothly. Soft, sympathetic, strategic. A few board members shifted uncomfortably, not because they disagreed, because it was uncomfortable to hear it said out loud. I didn't react, didn't interrupt, because I had heard it all before, and this time it didn't matter. The chairman raised his hand. Mr. Whitmore, she has the floor. That was all I needed. I opened my folder, placed the document on the table, carefully, deliberately. This is the final will of Eleanor Whitmore, I said, silence. Immediate. Heavy, my father's expression changed, not slowly, instantly. That's not possible, he said, too fast, too sharp, because he already knew not what it said, but what it meant. It was signed 4 years after the version you're referencing, I continued, and legally overrides it. The chairman reached for it, read, paused, then looked up, at me, at him, at everyone. This document states, he began slowly, that Dahlia Whitmore holds controlling interest in this company. The room shifted. You could feel it, like something invisible had just broken. No, my sister said immediately. That has to be wrong? It's been verified, Margaret added calmly. And then I played the recording. My father's voice filled the room, clear, undeniable, talking about removing control from the very person who built everything. When it ended, no one spoke, because there was nothing left to question. The chairman leaned back slightly, then looked at me. Do you have a motion? He asked. I did. And in that moment, every version of me they had ever believed in stopped existing. Because now they were finally looking at who I actually was, and they had no idea what to do with it. I stood there for a moment, not rushing, not reacting, because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. That part was already done. Now it was about what came next. I have one motion, I said. My voice didn't shake, didn't rise, didn't need to. I'm not here to remove anyone immediately. That caught them off guard. I saw it. In the way my sister's expression shifted. In the way my father leaned forward slightly, expecting something else, something aggressive, something emotional. They didn't understand this yet. I wasn't here for revenge. I'm requesting a vote of confidence, I continued. Silence. Confusion. Attention. If the board believes current leadership should remain, then nothing changes, I said. But if confidence is lost, then leadership steps down. Now they understood, because this wasn't personal, this was structural. This was the system they respected, being used exactly the way it was designed. My sister stood up immediately. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice had lost something, certainty. This isn't a courtroom, she added. No, I replied calmly, it's governance. The chairman watched me for a long second, then nodded. Is there a second? Seconded, Margaret said instantly. No hesitation, no doubt. The vote began, one by one, hands raised, slowly. Carefully, and with each movement, the illusion of control my father had built for years started collapsing. 4 hands, then 7, and that was it. Done. The motion carries, the chairman said, his tone steady, final. No confidence? No one reacted immediately, because moments like that don't explode. They settle, they sink in, they change everything quietly. My father didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't defend himself. He just sat there, still. Looking at me, not with anger, not even with disappointment, with something worse. Recognition. For the first time, he saw me, not as the version he created, not as the role he assigned, but as someone he had completely underestimated. And that realization was something he couldn't undo. He stood up slowly, adjusted his jacket, didn't say a word, and walked out just like that. The room remained silent, because no one quite knew what to say after something like that. The chairman looked at me again. Would you like to take over operations? He asked. I shook my head. No, that surprised them again. I'm not here to run everything, I said. I'm here to make sure it's run correctly, and that was the difference. Power doesn't always mean control, sometimes it means responsibility. The meeting ended shortly after. People approach me differently now, respectfully, carefully. Like they were recalculating everything they thought they knew, but the real moment didn't happen in that room. It happened later, alone, in the elevator, descending, same building, same walls, same space, but completely different. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their version of me. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't waiting to be seen. I already knew who I was, and that changed everything. I didn't win anything that day, not really. Because this was never about winning. It was about something else, something quieter, stronger, more permanent. I stopped asking people to recognize my worth and started deciding it for myself.